Looks like we still got plenty of time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing. And yeah, is there any questions that we may have? I know Marissa had one earlier.
Marissa,
yeah.
She was asking about what kind of, where was it?
What kinds of decisions?
Yeah, what kind of decisions is the information informing? And I think it's kind of become to the point where just about every decision that we're making at some point, if it involves an extended period of time, has got to look at being more resilient. I think a classic example is we're putting in a new trading post, and some of the things that we're realizing is that the grid is becoming less dependable. So we're going to do some things to, have backup generators, solar powered generators, so that, we've had instances in the past where we haven't been able to pump gas because the power's been out. And it really didn't have anything to do with our own issues. It was problems in Texas or problems somewhere along the line with the grid that were causing brownouts or blackouts or rolling blackouts. So we're seeing our business decisions being made with the thought of changing climate and being more resilient. Our community building is another area that's been impacted by some of the changes, specifically flash flooding. We do have a rainy season, but that rainy season is taking on a little bit of a different face these days. The amount of rain we receive is projected to not change much over over the next 50 years. What's going to change is when we receive it. We'll have a lot more of extreme weather events where we're getting 2 to 3 inches of rain drop at one point in time. And this has happened twice in the last 3 years where we had to close down our community building. That community building is being redone with FEMA funds. And one of the things we're looking at is making sure, the stormwater can be handled. That project is just starting now. And so we broke ground on it last week, as a matter of fact. The other thing that we need to be aware of is that the roads are taking a bit more of a hit from some of these storms and the flash floods that dig out culverts and things like that. So our roads budget and bridges budget, all those things are impacted by that. We're supposed, we're going to warm up a little bit, obviously. So maybe the heating bills won't be quite as high. And so what are we going to do with those funds? Some of them will need to be for cooling, but the community building will be set up to handle extreme heat events and people that need to get out of the heat. We are responsible for our own carbon footprint, and that mindset is becoming more prevalent. And so I think we'll see some vehicle charging stations, hopefully, and maybe some electric vehicles as well. They're becoming way more mainstream when 5 years ago, if you were talking about electric vehicles, they thought you were a communist. So hopefully that's going to change a little bit more, and you aren't instantly deemed a tree hugger the minute you say electric vehicles anymore. They're way more mainstream. But the biggest things, are looking at that change in the rainy season. It'll definitely impact agriculture. It seems like even without climate change considered, we're constantly on that verge of drought. I think we're seeing that way more frequently now. And so it's going to impact probably the way we grow things. With an extended growing season, they might not be planting quite as early in the season. I think our growing season is expected to increase by almost a month. It already has increased over a week, but we can expect it to at least double that in the next 20 years. So a lot of decisions are anything that's got some time involved with it is going to be impacted by some of the data that we're collecting.
Yeah, thank you for answering that, Mark. I love hearing the holistic perspective that you give when you talk about that work. I was hoping to see if Phil and Paula might be able to chime in and talk about what might be next for Rosebud post climate adaptation plan.
I go first.
Please.
Pitake pe yuha chante wasya na pe ochus papelo. Pick your hands with a good heart today. Something that's going on in our area is the water situation. We get a rural water system comes from the Missouri River, but we're also on top of the Oglala Aquifer. And then we're also getting news that Rapid City, South Dakota, needs water, and they're trying to get it from the Missouri River too. So we just completed a survey, a community survey, and the top two concerns are drought and water. So we have to educate our people. How are we going to save water, maximize our use of water? Do we build water storage capacities, or what do we do? So those are some of the things that we're working on, and also thinking about self-sustainability with energy and things like that. Another one that comes up all the time is food sovereignty, where our Lakota people, we used to be hunters. We live off the buffalo. So we feel that, the buffalo is our relative. The buffalo had carried us through in time to today, and we used to get our food and clothing and tools and shelter from the buffalo. So that's why we feel the buffalo is very important to the ecosystem. Whether a lot of people realize it or not, but maintaining those, protecting those ecosystems will be important in the future. For instance, somewhere you've seen a bridge over a highway interstate so the animals can cross over. This land, we feel we are part of this land, and therefore we are part of the ecosystem. So the Lakota traditional knowledge is very important to us, like the spirituality. We feel that there's a spirit in everything, the trees and even the rocks. And so we feel that Unchimaka is Mother Earth is alive. So we want to teach people to learn how to connect with Mother Earth, and because you're part of this earth, you're part of Mother Earth. You're one of her children. So we want to build that respect for Mother Earth. And the other thing is home design. In the early treaty days, that our homes they were very flimsy. So we met with the housing, and we hopefully we can help them change their mind about how they design homes. We're looking at the earth getting hotter. So how are we going to keep our people cool, and how are we going to keep them warm in the winter and the summers? So we have a lot of work in front of us. We also want to reduce our own carbon footprint. So we're pretty close to completing our adaptation plan. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Phil. It's helpful and great to hear, especially the housing issue. I think housing on most places in the Western US in particular, but also on reservations, such a cross-cutting issue, and something that I think is going to be pivotal for supporting people on the ground and adapting to climate change. So thanks for mentioning that. I don't know if Paula, if your speaker is working or if your connection is good. if you wanted to chime in too, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, yeah, this is Paula. I was listening to some of the things that, you know, I don't want to rehash everything that Phil and James talked about, but I think that it's really important that as Lakota people that we rely on our spirituality and the direction that's given from Mother Earth. You know, there's a lot of things that were taught traditionally, leading back to our traditional knowledge base. You know, there are things that we did, traditional land management practices, going back and you know, we just, you know, historically we just did not, you know, we always thought and made decisions for the 7 generations. You know, everything that we do, we have to think of the coming 7 generations. But we also practice seasonal planning, you know, like with traditional foods and stream clearing, you know, different management practices that aren't really done today. And I think that the dealing with harvesting and food sovereignty, we were talking about the harvesting of our own traditional foods and planting things, because when the earth knows you, you know, that's the most important thing. We want the earth to remember us, you know, because that's our connection, that's our spiritual connection. And you know, that was some of the things that were brought up in some of the community meetings that were, and in speaking with some of our spiritual leaders, that we needed to remember. So I just wanted to add that and say that we have a pretty strong team, and I hope that you know, I'm looking forward to completing the adaptation plan and integrating so much of this to make sure that our tribe can move forward in a good way, because it's going to get, you know, there's going to be catastrophic weather events. We're already experiencing severe wind, and we have to prepare. You know, we just have to keep moving forward. And that's all I got. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Paul. I really appreciate that. Great to hear from you. Does anybody else have any questions for anybody, for Mark or Paula, for myself, for James? You can take yourself off mute if you like. You can type it in the chat, whatever's easiest for you. While we wait for folks to think of questions, or if they have questions, Mark, I was going to ask you something similar. What is next at Sac and Fox? I know you've discussed working on your climate adaptation plan. Is there a particular place that you would like to implement that plan? Is it just kind of getting the plan over the hump and completing it? Like, where are you at?
That's exactly what we're thinking of. What is the next step? We know that the stream bank issue is it's going to be a tough problem to deal with, just for the simple fact that we're so checkerboarded. It's a matter of not getting just tribal buy-in, but community buy-in as well, and then creating the relationships that will allow us to use tribal funds on private land. And it'll be interesting. I think it can be done. It's a huge hurdle, but the need for it is there. I'm waiting for one day to see one of these big 12-row planters go into the into the ravine. It's something that is going to improve the quality of life, not just for the people, but all the relatives living on the land. We've got beaver that have you know, made their home in parts of the reservation, and it's really cool to see how they have their own say in dealing with the streams, because some of our housing has a beaver pond, and the tribal council didn't want them there, and so we rooted them out, and they moved on to some farmers' land, and so now they may be headed back to our land again. But I think this time we're looking at having a wetlands program, which will be included in our adaptation plan. So it's almost tough to say it's a specific climate adaptation plan. It's a resilience plan, just to um, uh, take on anything that's coming, because some of the problems that we're going to face, I don't think we know what they are yet. And the one thing that we have really noticed is that they don't just happen in a vacuum. You know, as the windstorms of last summer, they were accompanied by pandemic, and so we need to be able to deal with things as a community.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Mark. Looks like Bill, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, how's my sound? Okay.
Great.
I really start by a comment. By the way, Mark, I've got to say, I had some responsibility for managing some land, Nature Conservancy land out in eastern Colorado, and we were trying to do a good job at keeping prairie dogs, because we value that as a species. But every time our prairie dogs got over in the company farmers' land, we did hear about it. We had to decide, well, we're trying to be good neighbors and also have prairie dogs on our land. I want to offer a note of appreciation for some of the details that just got mentioned. I guess I just wasn't thinking as much about the many perspectives on climate that we all have, meaning emotional and spiritual and all, but appreciated thinking about just the maintenance issues in a variable climate, everything from culverts and road surfaces to housing. And I mean, I guess you know, that's what my county is struggling with, right? Because we've also been having we're having more droughts, as has already been mentioned, you and James both. But also these high flows, and all the little county roads keep getting washed out. So the county engineer had to go to the city council, the county commission, and beg for a bigger budget. So we're already spending more money on climate change right here in Boulder County, eastern Boulder County, where I live. And it really struck me to be thinking at that granular level, as well as the larger climate adaptation planning level. I want to say how much I appreciated that level of detail.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Thanks for chiming in there. Yeah, I thought Doug Cluck's presentation yesterday, it's kind of spoke to what you were just saying, and the amount of money that's going to be going into being reactive, billion-dollar disasters, and it's kind of at various scales right now too. You know, it's happening at our local level too, spending money on health with people's health concerns and the air pollution that's happening in Denver County, where I live. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up, because I think we're seeing it at every different level, and incorporating climate change and mainstreaming it into everyone's work is really kind of the task for government. So I thought, James, really appreciate you talking about Rosebud and where you all are at. It looks like Paul and Phil had to drop off, but so glad they could join us. Thank you, Mark, also for joining us. And I thought it was wonderful also comparing kind of the two regions. I'm looking at Rosebud and what goes on there, and this big 1 million acre reservation, and then what goes on in Nebraska and Kansas and a smaller checkerboarded, Missouri River, Lower Missouri River reservation. So super rich content. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to chime in. But otherwise, we just appreciate you all joining. Hopefully folks will be able to watch this recording later and get something out of it. Thanks Don and Jane and Bill for putting on, and Ileana for putting on the Climate Solutions Day. So thank you everyone, and we'll sign off. Thanks everyone.